First things first, though, as an employer, first thing I'd suggest doing is finding a very critical number. It's known as your PAYE reference number. So if you pay somebody, you pay their tax, national insurance, etc., whether that's through an accountant, payroll provider, whoever that may be that you pay them, you will have a PAYE reference number. If you can find this, take it to the regulator's website or ping me an email, feel free, and what we can do with that is find your staging date, because the critical thing here is how long have you got to prepare. So if you have your staging date, we can put it into the regulator's website and it comes up straight away and says X date, whatever X date may be. And as I say, it's based on how many people you had at your PAYE reference number back in 2012. If you're a new employer, we're probably not looking at until really April 2017 or later, if you've only just become an employer. But again, it's important that you know how long you've got to prepare. As I say, there's going to be a lot of people coming to the front here to deal with the pensions. The three key things I'd always say to every business to think about with auto-enrolment, whether that's yourself or other businesses that you deal with, is to first have that administration process set up. So just, again, putting it out to the room here, in terms of running your own payroll, do you outsource it? Do you do it all in-house? Maybe you're on an Excel spreadsheet or the back of a sheet of paper every month. What sort of things have we got going on? Anybody use Sage or Iris or any of these pieces of software? No? Third party, perhaps? Payroll company? Yeah, very common. Yep. Anybody else? No? First thing I do is go to that payroll company and say, what are you doing about automatic enrolment? As I say, this piece of legislation is about 20% pensions, about 80% administration. Payroll software, when I began back in 2012, was pretty dismal, I'll be honest. A lot of the times the payroll companies just said, we don't know what we're doing about this. This is a pensions issue, and we'll rely on the pension providers. And most pension providers will offer some form of software, some piece of third-party equipment that you can log on and ping some details to them, and that will come back, but it gets very clunky. We end up with what we would call a two-pass process. So this is where you're looking at that individual, or your payroll company is looking at that individual every month and determining what tax to pay, what national insurance to pay, and how much to actually physically pay them. That information is then being sent to the pension provider. The pension provider is doing a secondary assessment to determine whether they should be put in the pension or not, and what those contributions will look like. Then that spills out and goes back to the payroll provider, because the payroll provider will need to know to take those pension contributions before anything is then paid out. So it's what we call a two-pass process, which can be very messy and very time-consuming. What we'd like in an ideal situation is for you to have a word with your payroll company and they say, fantastic, we can do the assessment because we know how old everybody is and we know how much they get paid. So it's a very, very simple, straightforward calculation. Not always the case though. But have a word with your own payroll companies and see what they can do. All we're looking for is for them to be able to spill out an output, which then can be sent off to the pension provider that you ultimately choose for your business. So certainly first thing to put as a to-do is to have a word with your payroll provider. If you do this yourself, again, chances are, given where we are in the auto-enrolment staging dates, you probably have at least a maximum of 50 employees or less. Chances are a lot less. This can be done on an Excel spreadsheet. You can send off data to pension providers that you've pre-assessed yourself. Again, all we need to know is how old everybody is and how much you pay them. So again, you can do that yourself, and there's a manual way of doing this. So there's certainly a possibility of doing it as a DIY. Second thing, and actually interesting that we came to it a little bit earlier on, and this is about employee engagement and being a good employer. And I think auto-enrolment is actually a big part of this, is getting employees engaged with pensions, with their own retirement planning. So my name's Giles Robinson. I work for a company called Enroll Me. I am a pension specialist. I tend to be known as the pensions guy to most businesses.
I'm delighted to welcome Giles Robinson.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I am chair of the board of the SDS Forum.